Hello and welcome back to the Macca's Talk Hockey podcast, the podcast where me and Dan are going to take you through all the latest NIHL news and results and fixtures as well, because this weekend is probably one of the biggest weekends in National League history, Dan, in terms of the league title.
Yeah, 100%. I can't remember the last time we had a little title race this close.
Uh,
I don't think it's come this far into the season. And it's still obviously tied on points. So yeah, it's going to be unreal. If you're a Leeds or an MK fan, I don't know how your nerves are feeling. I think if it was me, I think I'd already be nervous. But yeah, it's going to be an unbelievable game, and I can't wait to be in the arena for it.
So yeah, Leeds versus Milton Keynes. We are going to preview this game as soon as we've gone through all the games from this weekend, which we'll go through quite quickly. And we'll do a big preview for this game because it is probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest game of the season. But we do have a couple news bits beforehand. The first is I'm not sure if we'll have a podcast next week. We'll have to see. I think we've got to try and do one, Dan. With this, we've got to try and do one. So I might take my laptop out and we'll get an episode out in New York. But we are going to New York this Sunday. Damn, we're going. It hasn't quite sunk in yet.
Yeah, no, not yet. What is it, Tuesday now? So yeah, it's coming around. It's coming around quick. I'm sure it's we're going to get to the end of the week and we're still not going to be ready. So yeah, it's going to be good fun now. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, four games. We need to get tickets for the last one, which I'll probably do tomorrow when I got a bit of free time. But yeah, so we'll try and get an episode. I'll take the laptop out. Could do a bit of work out there as well. I think we got the Wednesday free actually, so we could record then. The first bit of news is the signing news. And it is Callum Bouglas is back for his eighth season at the Peterborough Phantoms. Two more seasons after that away from a testimonial, which I'm sure will be having a couple eyes on. But Dan, just again, another solid sign-in. I don't think he would have left really. And it's nice for Peterborough to have him back. He proved how good and how I just think how calm of a defenseman he is in that playoff final against Leeds.
Yeah, the big thing that we talk about on this pod is if you've got a D man that doesn't really get spoken about a lot, then he's normally doing a really good job. And if you look at Bouglis, he's one of those D men that aren't the best in the corners. Like, he's not going to throw the body or throw those
Not
massive hits
physical.
center ice, but with his stick, he uses his stick really well, uses his reach really well, and like you say, he's a really composed D man, and he's found his spot in Peterborough. He's obviously found the trust in Slava. And yeah, it's just a club that he's really comfortable at, and I couldn't really imagine him being at any other club.
No, obviously he had his little stints at Swindon when he was a bit younger.
Yeah,
But yeah, he's just settled right into this Peterborough team. He Slava absolutely loves him as well. And yeah, he's not the most physical of defensemen, but he's proven that he doesn't need to be because of his other attributes. I think he's very, very smart. Smart defenseman, obviously using his stick, like you said. So yeah, a really good re-signing for Peterborough, and I wouldn't have expected him to go anywhere else. The other news was the Berkshire Bees have announced their special retro night, and I know Swindon have been doing a few fans fest, and other teams have done a couple as well, which is really good to see. It's more of like I guess not just the game. You're turning up for an actual kind of event, if you want to call it that. Pre-game, you then got the game, and then you've got the post-game as well. And the Bees are doing their special retro night. And Dan, we absolutely love the jerseys, obviously from their 1999 season. A little fact as well, they're the only National League team to have won the top league in England when it was called the Super League. So yeah, just they are so good, Dan, aren't they? If I was a Bees fan, that would be going straight in my basket.
yeah, no, they do look unbelievable. The first time I saw them, I just loved them. I love the fact that they've obviously got the old Bracknell bees on the
Yeah,
front.
they're still
Um,
owning the Bracknell Bees.
yeah, it's gonna be really good to see. It'll feel really weird, obviously seeing them wearing Bracknell bees jerseys in Slough. But yeah, it looks like an unbelievable jersey, and fingers crossed. Maybe you can get a few obviously retro fans in the rink. Maybe get
Yeah.
a few fans from back in the day. Might attract a few eyes. And just really have a really good night with obviously the players in the crowd and really take it all in. Because I'm
And
sure a lot of fans miss the Bracknell Bees. So
oh yeah.
it's
Oh, I
um
I always say to you how much I miss that old Bracknell rink, man. Oh,
Like we
I
said,
think
that
it's still up and running. Or not up and running, but it's still there. It's just not got any use, is it?
yeah, it's yeah, there's a lot of memories in that ring for everyone. I think everyone misses the Bracknell Bees, and we've always said, to me, they'll always be Bracknell Bees. I still call them Bracknell now. They're never going to lose the name for me.
Yeah, they'll always be the Bracknell Bees, and I believe as well, they're also auctioning an original signed stick from that team back in 1999, 2000. So keep an eye on their socials or website. They might be putting it up there where you can bid on that. But that is definitely some top memorabilia. Is that how you say it? Memorabilia?
Memorabilia, yeah.
Memorabilia for the bees. So yeah, nice little retro night. And the Wildcats as well. Shout out to them. They also have their St. Paddy's fan fest, their final one of the season. And obviously they had their jerseys as well. Mixed opinions on them. Hey, it's just special jerseys in it. They might look a bit like pajamas, but we got the win in it. So we'll come on to that in a minute. And then the final little one was um think from this weekend there was Jason Hewitt who got sent to DOPS. Let me just have a look. Yeah, so Hewitt sent to DOPS for slashing. So Seahawks could face another ban, unfortunately. So we'll have to see about that. Should we crack on into the games then, Dan? And then obviously we'll finish with that MK Leeds preview.
Yeah, yeah, let's go for it.
So Friday night then started with the Wildcats. We've had another Friday game, and it was against the Bees. Obviously, we beat them 4-0 on the Sunday before, and it was another shutout, Dan. And it, it was probably one of the most boring games I've ever watched. I'm not. I'm just gonna call. I'm not gonna call, what's the phrase I said? Let's not call a spade a spade. It was one of the most boring games I watched, but we got the job done. We got a shutout. Defensively, we look a lot more solid than we have in previous weeks, and we've beaten a team who we lost to in overtime 4-3 a month ago as well. So you've got to take a lot of positives out of it, even though maybe offensively we didn't look as good as we know we can be.
Yeah, I mean, bees are a team that you can slip up on. They are a trip hazard sometimes. So you can't take any game against them lightly, and especially coming into this part of the season, obviously teams can sort of put their foot off the gas a little bit because, like Swindon, they've not really got anything to play for now until playoffs. They're in that blip of they haven't got anything to obviously
We've
contend
pretty
with the
much got
title.
third as well, yeah.
Like, yeah, so it's sort of easy to take your foot off the gas. You probably start seeing a few players resting themselves coming into playoffs and sort of just taking it easy. They don't want to get injured. No silly things before playoffs. But yeah, it was just a really solid performance from Swindon at the back. Um, I thought with Aaron on the bench, it
Yeah.
got coached. It was good to see Aaron sort of coaching from the bench because I feel it felt a bit more structured from the team.
Defensively structured,
Um,
yeah.
I think it does make a difference having that coach on the bench sometimes because he can really see the game from like a different angle, and it's a lot easier to coach when you're not playing as well, and
Yeah.
it's easy to get those lines out and stuff like that. But yeah, there's positives to take from the game, but it wasn't the best as a fan point of view watching the game.
Yeah, we limited them to 13 shots
Yeah,
in the whole game. And shout out Tyler Perry, even though it is only 13 shots, he still kept the shutout and he hasn't really played a full game since I think it was Bristol. Yeah, Bristol at home we played. And yeah, 13 save shutout. You made a really nice save actually in the first period on Serenis, who cut inside and he just closed the angle because he's quite a big netminder. So yeah, it was a comfortable win. Jake
also
Brooks. Oh, go on.
a shout out to Skins as well. I mean, he was coming in the pipes and he made
Yeah.
some really big saves
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
he made some robberies. It looked like he wasn't going to be beat at one point, and yeah, once you got a few past him, he sort of it's you lose that momentum that you get. But yeah,
Yeah.
still a really solid performance from Skins. He just can't seem to get away from it.
Yeah, Dino, 35 shots we had. He saved 32 out of 35, and some of them were tough shots, weren't
Yeah,
they?
yeah.
And he made some real good saves. So a positive, Swindon get the 3-0 win. And we'll talk about the Saturday in a second. It might actually be the next game. Let me just let me just check. Oh no, it's not the next game. The next game is the first game on Saturday, which was Leeds Knights and the Hull Seahawks. A potential trip up, Dan, for this one because Hull did beat them in Leeds last time 2-1, but Brown and Barron. Those are the only two guys we need to talk about from this game because those are the only two who scored. Brown getting four, Barron getting another hat trick. Just those two, man. I know it's a team game and whatever. You need your team to step up, but those two carried really.
Yeah, I mean, I saw comments apparently Bissonnette had a really good game,
Mm,
so I can
he got
imagine.
one, two. He got three assists as well.
Yeah, I can imagine he was just playing his game, just sort of where when you've got obviously players like Brown and Barron scoring like that, you don't need Bissonnette doing all his offensive work. You just need him to go for his two-way and just make sure he's defensively
Yeah,
sound, being that guy that's obviously really sound in the defensive zone, getting those passes out, really clever with his stick. But yeah, I mean, Brown and Barron, they've been on fire this season. Barron especially, he's really shown another side of his game, I think.
yeah,
We've never really seen this side of Barron before. But yeah, going into playoffs is the perfect time for both of them to be heating up. And you knew Brown was going to heat up at one point, and this is the time where he's just really going for it now. And I was looking at the stats the other day, and he shot straight up the stats board already. And even though he had those injuries at the start of the year.
yeah. It is a joke, isn't it? Kieran Brown is now on after this weekend 26 points in 43 games, may I add. If we're looking at the statistics going on now, Sobchak, for example, has played 49. Um, Walker Sommer's played 50, Brown's only played 43. So actually, points per game wise, Brown is definitely top two, I think, with Sobchak,
Yeah.
which is just ridiculous. And yeah, he is hitting form at the perfect time when it is crunch time now for the night. So 7-4 win for them. It did get a bit nervy. They were 5-1 up, I think, and Hull got it back to 5-4. But Brown and Barron in that third period getting those two goals at the end to just secure the win. So yeah, big 2 points for Leeds, especially with what else happened on Saturday, which we'll get into. The next game was the game I was at. The Solway Sharks and the Swindon Wildcats travelled all the way up to Dumfries on that Saturday for about 5.5 hours, I think it was. We stopped off as well. And the Wildcats pulled off a really, really nice victory, really hard fought victory. We've seen a lot of teams stumble down in Solway this season. They are a home team. Solway are very much a home team. And we got those two early power play goals. Solway give a penalty away within 10 seconds. You just cannot do that to the team who has the second best power play in the league. We actually scored on that power play with our second unit, Vanya Antonov. And I just want to say again, I know I keep popping up with these, but I spoke to Kieran, who was next to me at the game. And I said before the game, literally during warm up, I said, you know what? I'm feeling a Vanya goal today. He was very unlucky not to score against Bees. Skins robbed him a couple times. I just feeling a Vanya goal. 2 minutes in, Vanya on the power play, and he puts us 1-0 up. Then Jones got another power play goal. And then Jones got another power play goal in the second period, and we were 3-0 up from power plays down. And when you're in a playoff race, you cannot give penalties away like that. And it's silly ones as well.
Yeah, and the special teams are so important. Special teams could potentially win you games through playoffs. That's sort of because teams are a lot tighter as well in playoffs. You sort of have to try and score on those power plays. And Swindon have had an unbelievable power play all year. It's one of those ones that hasn't really switched off all year. You've not really had like a rough patch on the power play. Um, but yeah, it's a massive mistake when you're already facing a tough team, you're in games that you're like a must win. You can't give away these penalties because you are gonna get bitten for them, and obviously Solway did from Swindon, and yeah, it's not the best position. And 3 goals, it's hard to come back against a team that's playing really solid defensively as well.
Yeah, we just kept two shutouts. We then got a 5-on-3 power play, and to Solway's credit, they actually killed the whole 2 minutes of 5-on-3 because they got two penalties at the same time. That gave them a bit of momentum, and they scored with 6 seconds left of the period. It was almost like Gardner. He loves to shoot. Just threw it on net, and it found that little gap. And Solway would have wanted that period to go on for another 5-10 minutes, but the period ended. New period, the Wildcats refreshed, and Dan, I sent you, or you sent me the goal on TikTok, but the
Yeah.
highlights will come out soon. What a link up play between Bally and Britnell, considering they haven't really played together much this season. Britnell sources it to Bally, Bally backhands it back to Britnell, backhand shelf, and that's his second goal of the weekend, 47th for the season. And that just killed the game off for me. Just getting that 3 goals back, taking the momentum away from Solway. Yeah, it was a really nice goal, and it just capped it off. Really, I know Dunbar did score a power play goal late on, but we never really looked like conceding. Um, Again, really, I think defensively we were very solid. Bally was blocking shots. Jones was. Wells was so good. Like just Wells just showing his class. So yeah, that's a big win for Swindon, considering they haven't got too much to play for and how tough it can be playing in Solway.
Yeah, it's the first time Swindon have gone up there on one night as well. I
Yeah,
think both every time they played in Solway until then was
been
obviously those
double.
double header games. So yeah, traveling up on the same day that can be rough. It can obviously get to you when you can't get the legs moving straight away, and Solway are obviously straight out there onto you. But Swindon seem to manage it well, and that's a good little road victory for them.
Yeah, and it was a nice journey back knowing that we did win. Even though I got back at 4:30 in the morning and didn't get into bed till 5 a.m. So yeah, we took the easy way out on the Sunday with a close little game because I had to go to another game. I wasn't sitting on Sunday doing nothing. The next game was the Sheffield Steel Dogs and the Telford Tigers. And the Telford Tigers again, just they might have conceded a few. They conceded 4, but they scored 7, and his name's popping up every week here. Eric Henderson, just absolutely ridiculous. 4 goals, 2 assists, 6 points on the night, 6 out of the 7 goals. He has got Dan. He after that game, he had 34 points in his last 10 games. That's over 3 points a game. You can see why Telford are comfortably in this playoff spot now, can't you?
Yeah, it's like you said, they may not be the most defensively sound team, but at the minute, obviously they can't keep going with it, but they are sort of outscoring their
Yeah.
problems. You can't rely on obviously having Henderson popping up like that every game, but at the minute it's working. And to be fair, every import in Telford is firing at the minute, and they're really stepping up to the plate. And when you need people to score, the imports are stepping up like they should be. But yeah, massive credit to Henderson. He's like I said a few podcasts ago, I really like the way he plays, and even though he does get the points, it's not just those that sort of catch my eye. It's the way he just plays off the puck as well. He never stops working. He works for his goals, and I can see why he gets so many because he does deserve it for the work rate he's got. And yeah, he seems to be like a perfect fit for Telford. And yeah, I think if Tom Watkins isn't already talking to him about a new contract, then I'm sure someone else will be.
I bet I know other teams aren't allowed to speak to other players, but I bet they are desperate to try and sign him
Yeah,
because
if they're not speaking to him, they definitely got his name down. They're
yeah,
definitely ready.
what a player. And Thompson as well.
Yeah,
I know we think Henderson is probably the more all-rounded player, but Thompson, he's still banging in the goals. He's picking up assists as well. So yeah, just really, really big 2 points for Telford. Just another 2 points over Solway again. So yeah, they should get that playoff spot. They've got a few tricky games now, Telford, until the end of the season, but yeah, I think they should confirm that playoff spot now. And then Bristol Pitbulls, they finally got the win. The fans flipping deserve it. We spoke to a few Bristol fans on the Sunday, and they were happy. And they got 9 goals. They just come in. They come like London buses. I think that's the phrase when you haven't scored or you haven't really done well at home, you then get 9 and they beat the Raiders 9-5. A tough night for the Raiders. I think what's his fair? Ryder started. James then got in for Ryder, who got pulled. James then might have got a little injury, so Ryder had to come back in after getting pulled. So I can imagine mentally that was quite difficult. But yeah, seven different goal scorers, Dan. Elliot Lewis getting a couple, and we'll probably speak a bit about him on the Sunday's game as well. But that, result aside, the Bristol fans just deserve that, don't they?
Yeah, especially on home ice.
Yeah.
It was another sellout crowd for Bristol. They still get the sellouts, but this time they actually got rewarded for paying for the ticket. They
Yeah.
the fans that we spoke to on Sunday, it was nice speaking to them because even though Bristol had a tough season, they were still positive, and I know they won the night before, so they were going to be positive, but they seem like from talking to the fans, it seemed like every player on the ice really stepped up and sort of really showed what they can do. Elliot Lewis being one of them. Apparently, he was like head and above everyone else on the ice that night.
Yeah.
And we've seen what Elliot Lewis can do. We've seen he's had moments of that magic where he just goes on that skate and he looks so strong on the puck. So I can imagine what he was like. But Bristol, we wanted that from their players to finish the season off now. Um, Even if they lose these games, they don't want to be losing them without fighting for it. They want to be putting 110% in. Obviously, they're going to be looking at their players. We've had another season. We've not got what we wanted, but let's finish off strong. Finish off with some pride. Get some home victories for the crowd, and really sort of put a good light on the season coming up, and hopefully sort of get a bit of positivity going into the off season, and hopefully maybe obviously have a better season coming up.
Yeah, make a few signings, change the roster about a bit, and just see what happens. The league could change a lot next season. We don't really know. The final game on Saturday then was the game of the day, really. The derby, obviously, MK previously beat Phantom 6-1 in their own barn, and you can imagine all the Phantoms players felt a bit like, okay, we need to flip and perform it. We can't lose twice. And oh my goodness, Dan, you were at the game, setting the tone straight away. 38 seconds, Nathan Salem shelves it, and I think that just calmed the nerves. I know that MK scored a few minutes later, but it just seemed like Peterborough weren't gonna let MK go away with it, were they?
Yeah, no. After that goal went in, it didn't look like when we go to MK, like we've said it on all the pods, but where they have that wave of like
Yeah.
possession and they have that wave of domination. And if you can survive the wave of that, you always got a chance. But in this game, after that goal went in 38 seconds in, Peterborough never looked like they had that domination wave. Like they had that goal, but they didn't gain anything from it. They didn't gain any momentum. It didn't look like they were a different team after that goal.
No.
Um, and what Peterborough did really, really well is they limited every opportunity for MK. They made them really, really work for their chances. And in the end, MK sort of they it looked like they ran out of ideas a little bit. They were sort of just I don't know. It looked like they were trying too hard to score. And we've said it on the pod as well. When you're trying too hard, that's when obviously the goals don't go in. You just sort of need to calm down and go back to the basics. I don't know if it was because Tim Wallace wasn't there. They weren't obviously having their main coach. They didn't have their coach on the ice either. It did look like they missed a Tim Wallace in that team. It seemed like a Tim Wallace would be able to control the game a bit more, use his body, use his size. Sort of, he can hold the puck up. He can wait for his players to get into position instead of rushing it. But it just looked like MK were a bit too rushed in that game, and I think that's credit to obviously Peterborough's defense and the way they defended in that game, and the structure that Peterborough have. So yeah, massive credit to
Oh,
Peterborough.
we forgot to mention as well, Martin Sisters has left MK as well. Forgot to mention that. We did speak a bit at the start of the season about how Sisters struggles to be able to play a full season. So we hope that everything is all right, personal or whatever it is. But he won't be with MK for the rest of the season. So that is a bit of a loss for them because he in that mid part of the season where they were struggling a bit. He was the guy who was stepping up and scoring the goals. I remember he scored twice against Romford when I was on the commentary. So yeah, it is a bit of a loss for MK. But saying that, when Peterborough were on it as well, they were on it. Credit to them as well. They were missing Norton and Thorpe, two of their top four D men. And I've forgotten his name. Let me just quickly get him up, Dan, because someone stepped in for Peterborough. It was
Glossop
Glossop obviously stepped in. Nathan
and
Long, the
Long. Yeah, yeah. He
defenseman.
was in the Thorpe jersey.
Yeah, so he was wearing the number 25, but he's been playing in the national too. And he stepped up his first game playing for them in Milton Keynes. And when I can't imagine he played loads and loads, but when he did play, I can imagine he did a shift. And fair play to
He
him.
got a fair few minutes. He got a
Yeah, yeah,
fair
yeah.
few.
Well, when you've got two of your big D men out, you need some players. And I want to shout out one other player, and that is Lackinen. And he made one of the best defensive plays, and then also offensively, he was brilliant as well. The defensive play, Dan, saw on the highlights. Venus has an empty net. He took it round Hayden Levine. All he has to do is tap it in. And Lackinen just rugby tackled him. He just rugby tackled, jumped on him, just stopped him from touching the puck into that net. And it gave away a power play, but the penalty, those are the type of penalties where if you give one away, you've helped the team, and the team will kill that for you. They'll kill that penalty for you. I think Rennie talked about it. If there's a penalty which is a bit aggrieved, or you've kind of saved the team a bit, the team will work extra hard to kill that, and that's exactly what they did. And he stopped a certain goal, didn't he, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, all night again, the MK power play wasn't great. That was another one of the reasons
It's
why
been
they,
very up and down this season.
yeah, it's, and that's it. It was like it against Swindon a few months ago, but it looked like it again against Peterborough. They didn't have that power play sort of. I don't know. They just didn't get
The
any.
bite to the power play.
Yeah, it was just too much passing again. They just didn't have a guy that was there to shoot it. They did miss Forsberg in the third period. He went off after the second period. So that was obviously a big loss. You've got that guy, you can quarterback the power play. They brought him in to obviously help the special teams out. Um, but yeah, it was one of those nights where the power plays really hurt MK. They just didn't capitalize on them, and when Peterborough go and score on theirs as well, it's a bit of a kick in the teeth for MK because that's a chance lost, and MK and Peterborough took the chances that they had, and yeah, they were 5-on-3 and they made it 3-1 on that 5-on-3
That was
power play,
huge.
and that was going into the third period, if
Yeah,
I'm
it was
correct.
38 seconds into the third
Yeah,
period.
so because I was saying in the period break, I was saying if they could score on this power play, that's a good little cushion for them. And yeah, from that goal, it didn't look like Peterborough were giving up that lead, and yeah, they just finished off the game, shut the game down, and at the end of the game, that's when obviously MK really pushing, and that's when Peterborough just did their normal thing where they come back, hold the blue line, and then just counter attack whenever they can. And they got a few goals off that too. So, yeah, solid game for Peterborough and a really good road win that they needed after their defeat against MK the weekend before.
Yeah, and with the game opening up, they scored a really nice team goal. If you haven't
Oh,
seen it already, go and watch the
lovely goal.
highlights. Peterborough's fourth goal, tic-tac-toe at the back door, easy as you like. That top line has been a joke this season, Lackinen, Farrar and Huff. So a big win for the Peterborough Phantoms who get their revenge over the Lightning. And I say put a dent in it. It still does come down to Saturday, but that is a big 2 points drop for Milton Keynes. Um, Anyways, on to the Sunday, and we start with Milton Keynes again. And this one's huge. This one was huge because it's a place where they have struggled over the past couple seasons. Every game there has been tight. It was 5-4, 6-5 Romford in the first game they met. Then it was the semi-final where Romford won 5-4, and then it was the overtime winner from not County, sorry, Norris, where they won 4-3. And in that game, they tied it up late as well with like
Yeah, like a
10
minute.
seconds to go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's been absolute belters between those two, and I've put a tweet out. And actually, I forgot to mention this. I've started doing some statsy kind of tweets and Facebook posts now. I hope people are enjoying them. Please do go follow our socials at Macca's Talk Hockey. I'm going to keep on posting Lee's stat stuff. Dan's going to help me with some as well if he sees some or looks at some. But it was set to be a cracker, and it sounded like just how we thought it would. Romford going at them, playing like it's their big game because it's against MK. You want to beat MK. And again, Milton Keynes concede within the first minute. Sean Miller, again, he loves scoring against Milton Keynes. And then Milton Keynes got one back. Tom's Rutkiss on the power play. But Romford and Adam Laysham, he was due a kind of breakout game, wasn't he, Dan, since returning from injury? We know the skills Adam Laysham's got. How and it's his old team as well. Players always score against their old teams, and he scored twice on the power play within 4 minutes between each one, putting them 3-1 up. But credit, Dan. Yeah, credit Milton Keynes. They just pull something out their arse, don't they? They just do it. And Ross Venus, the guy you look to, he comes back and gets a goal quite early, less than 2 minutes into the third period, making it a one-goal game. And then it was the former Raider, Harry Gulliver, getting the equaliser with just over 5 minutes to go. He actually got a 10 minutes misconduct. Charlie was watching the stream. He said he went absolutely mental, like celebration. So he got a 10-minute misconduct. And it was 3-3, Dan. Romford get a power play with 2 minutes to go of the game, or a minute and a half. And Milton Keynes defend it for their lives, get a point in overtime. They kill the 30 seconds. Charlie showed us the overtime. And then it was Max Stewart, who's been top three, could possibly be the best youngster this season in the National League, who gets the rebound goal. And that that alone has just stopped it from being in Leeds' hands, and it can still be in MK's hands now, the league. That goal, that's massive.
Yeah, it's a massive goal, and even if you look at that Venus goal, that's just as big. Like
Mm.
if Venus doesn't get that goal, potentially MK don't make that comeback. Um, Romford, but to be fair, we say about MK, fair play to Romford. We've spoken about their D a lot. We've spoken about they can't defend Leeds, but they kept the game down. Obviously, I know they gave away that 3-1 lead, but fair play to them. They're against MK. That's a really hard team to play against, and they kept the score to obviously going into overtime. They kept it at 3-3. They had Ryder in goal as well, so they're back
Yeah,
up in there.
fair play to Ryder after the
Yeah,
night he had before.
yeah. So fair play to him, and yeah, at Romford they just turn up against MK. Like they just love the game against MK. Um, it's just MK just haven't seemed to have found a way of winning like comfortably in that rink yet. They just haven't seemed to find a way. But the thing is, they're getting it done in overtime. If they get there, they're getting it done. Whatever they need to do, they're getting it done. So it doesn't really look too bad on them. But Romford is, yeah, it's just one of those bogey teams that MK just can't seem to get over the hump yet. But if they're winning, they're not complaining. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's one of them seasons where they've gone to overtime 14 times this season, more than any other team. I think the second most is Bristol, actually, 12 times, and they've lost countless times on the shootout. But MK have won 9 out of those 14 overtimes, Dan. I put out a stat, just 23 points in overtime across all of those games. Leeds have only gone to overtime twice. You can see the difference between them, but you still win with the format. Our league isn't the 3-2-1 format, it's the 2-1-0 format. And that just benefits MK this season, and they're just getting it done. Whereas in previous seasons, they haven't done this, Dan, have they? And I don't know, just it does seem like fate. I know MK fans will hate me saying that, and Leeds as well, but it just does seem like it's one of them seasons where, yes, there's some downs like that Saturday, but then that Sunday's just even as big. It's just as big. If they can now beat Leeds, it's in their hands again. So, Yeah, massive overtime win for Milton Keynes. Fair play to them. And also, they need to stop getting bans now. Wallace needs to stop getting bans. I'm not really sure what this coach penalty points thing was because obviously Wallace got his individual ban, then the coach penalty points one as well. I'm not sure if that's served on the same one. I don't know. I don't care. I don't want to get into it. But yeah, it did seem a bit weird. No one really knew what was up with that. But it does. Wallace just needs to stay out the bans now, doesn't he? Because he is one of their most important players in this time of the season. You saw on Saturday without it how much they do miss him.
Yeah, they do, and you can. He's had a few people look at him this season. You've had a few people talk about him, a few MK fans talking about him. Um, but he's just proven, like this second half of the season, he's proven how big he can be. The fact that you're going to have a Tim Wallace on a third line, he makes that third line 10 times better. Um, I was talking to Charlie, no discredit to Hamill, but I feel like Hamill's a better player when he has Tim Wallace with
Oh
him on
yeah,
that
100
line.
100%.
It just gives you that sense of security that you've got Tim Wallace with you. Like you sort of you've got that guy running the line. Like he can run that line easily. You've got that outlet pass to go to. He can do everything. All you need to do is just get into the position for him. But yeah, he's a guy, and he's totally proved it now that I don't think there's a question that you can't go into playoffs without Tim Wallace in your lineup. Um,
He
I
needs
think
to be in it.
especially in that playoff atmosphere. He can throw the body, he can play that playoff style of hockey. And the thing is, the guy's the coach. No one's gonna want to win more than your coach. The fact he's got that team with him, everything. If they lose, it's all gonna come back on him. So he's not gonna want to win any more than anyone in that team. It's gonna be him. So he's gonna put everything into this playoffs. He's gonna put everything into this end half of the season, and he's going to be given 110% every time.
Sorry if I keep looking over here, by the way. The Liverpool playing PSG and it's just in added time. So just glancing on that. But yeah, yeah, just ban, stay out of the ban box. Don't do anything stupid now.
And
Um,
hopefully Forsberg's injury isn't too bad.
yeah,
Um,
he didn't play
I,
on
I'm
the
not
Sunday.
sure. I'm not sure what he did. I didn't actually see him. He didn't get like hit or anything like that. He must have just felt something go. But hopefully,
Luxury of
it's just
having four
yeah,
Forte.
yeah. I mean, hopefully it's just a precautionary thing. Don't want to push anything for obviously going into playoffs or maybe saving himself for Leeds. But yeah, fingers crossed he's not too badly injured because he's another big piece of that MK team.
And before MK fans say anything, yes, Romford can do it as well. They have four imports. Shufelt didn't play this weekend. On to the whole Seahawks and the Sharks, and we're in must-win territory now for the Sharks, and they gave it a flipping great go against a whole team who are relentless at home. It got to 3-2 Solway at one point. Lewis Young with a couple quick goals, but Hull just fought back into it. And there's one guy I want to talk about, and that is Mr. Bobby Chamberlain. I put a stat up today on the socials. I didn't realize this until I checked the other day. He has got 29 game point streak, Dan. He has got a point in all of his last 29 games. And if there's any muppet, or I'm going to say, if there's any knobhead in the comments who are saying, oh, Peterborough got the 5-0 win, though. Shut up. We're not counting that one, all right? He got 2 points in that game. So technically it's a 30 game point streak, but that one's been erased, of course. So 29 point game streak, Dan, and 60 points in them games. That's just over a point per 2 points a game. That's bonkers.
Yeah, he's had an unbelievable season. He's been he's been head and above any other season he's had. Um, he's obviously he's a Brit in that team, and if you're getting that point production from a Brit, it's always good. And the thing is, he's been on a line with Sobchak and Svek, but I so you're going to get points,
Yeah.
but at the same time, just the way he plays, it obviously brings points. He gets in the right position, he gets in the dirty areas, and yeah, he's an unbelievable year, and he's another guy. If he can keep rolling into playoffs, he's a guy that you don't want to come up against because he will play that gritty game, that playoff hockey style. He'll step up for his team if he needs to. He can score goals. He's like a Marchand, like a Marchand. He can do the ratty little plays. He can score goals at big times, and he's obviously the captain. So
We
he's gonna.
always do. Me, you, and Charlie always do our funny like comparisons. Which NIHL players, what NHL players would they be? Obviously, the NHL players are levels above, but if we're comparing them, we've always said Bobby Chamberlain is Brad Marchand. He literally is the
or
Brad Marchand
Matthew Kachuk,
or
someone like
Kachuk.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
either one of those two. Who's an unbelievable player, can be rat as well. But yeah, and
He's one of those.
also
He's one of those players that you just hate playing against, but you'd have him on your team any single day of the week.
yeah, absolutely, he gets on any team in the league. Uh, Sorry, hiccups. And also, he sent me in a stat as well. He also said they might be the first line because they've played together all season. Chamberlain, Svek, Sobchak to all get 100 points in the same season ever in the EPIHL and the National League. So Sobchak, Svek, and Chamberlain, if they all finish on 100 plus points, I think Chamberlain needs 7 points in his last 4 games. And obviously Svek and Sobchak's already got it. Svek's really close as well. So that would be just bonkers and show how dominant they'd probably be the most dominant line points wise we've seen. But yeah, penalty shootout win for them 6-5. Solway Sharks get a point, which means they've not mathematically out. It's going to take a flipping lot. They'd have to have a lot go their way. But yeah, Hull are very good at penalty shots, aren't they, Dan? Actually, I do want to say that. Corneal, Sobchak, Chamberlain, sorry, not Chamberlain, Svek, and Bonner, they all scored their penalty shot. So fair play to Hull for getting that done. And then Peterborough Dan will brush over this one, getting a 4 point weekend. Sometimes after you've been on that high of the game before against Milton Keynes, beating them 5-1, the Sunday game can actually be even more difficult. And it did sound like it was a lot more weird, difficult game, especially with Sheffield. Sheffield again are just you don't really know what's going to come out of Sheffield in some games. But they took a 2-0 lead, Sheffield. Zane McKenzie then scored, and Peterborough just battled back into the game and ended up winning 6-4. And it was the top guys again. And actually, shout out Connor Glossop, who got his first goal of the season as well.
Yeah, I was looking at the pictures and there was a few comments and stuff like that, and they just said that the Peterborough team just were on the ice. It looked like they loved hockey.
Yeah. They haven't
Obviously
got too
they're
much to play for, but
yeah
they're winning games.
yeah, that's the thing. They're winning games and they've just beat their derby game the night before, so they're gonna be on a high, like you said. And yeah, it was pretty cool seeing them obviously all over the bench for Glossop's goal. They're all smiling and obviously really happy for him. And that's the thing when you've got a team like that and you're sort of coming to the end of the season, you just want to gain a bit of momentum, a bit of don't know, just something to roll into playoffs. So if that means just bringing a team together, just I know Slava likes a really tight knit group and a really tight knit group going into playoffs as well. So yeah, I'm sure every single player in that team is going to be pushing each other on to be their best, and yeah, just keeping the what's it called? Keeping
Train
how do you
rolling.
say it? Yeah, just keeping a good mood in the dressing room
Yeah,
going into playoffs.
positive vibes, even if
Yeah,
they
yeah,
get a
that's it.
couple losses to end the season. And shout out Yanni Lackinen, 42 years old, but an 8 point weekend. He hit 75 assists. If it weren't for Sobchak, who's just an absolute points machine, he would be the top assister, but he is second behind Sobchak. So, yeah, 4 point weekend for Peterborough. Fair play after a tough weekend last week where I don't think they got any points. Um, Leeds Knights, a potential tripping hazard again. I know every game really is a tripping hazard, but away in Telford, with the way Telford are scoring, the way they're playing at the moment, 3-0 shutout. Sam Gospel. Whoa, whoa. 27 saves. This is why he's the best goalie in the league at the moment. Kieran Brown and Barron both scoring as well. And then Finn Braden getting the first one. It's been corrected to Braden, even though the Twitter admin definitely put McMullen because we were laughing at his celebration thing. But shutting out Telford in Telford after the way Telford have been scoring, that is what Leeds do, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it's all the B's for Leeds. Be it Brown, Braden,
Oh,
Barron.
the BBB, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. All the B's. Um,
BBPG with gospel.
oh yeah, and gospel as well. But yeah, I mean, easy as you like for Leeds. You've had teams struggling to defend against those imports in Telford. Leeds come into that game, shut it down 3-0, easy, shut the game down. Don't let any silly things get into Telford's head to obviously let them get back into the game. You've obviously, I can imagine they were going pretty heavy on their imports, trying to get a bit of momentum going for a goal. But Leeds do what they do best and shut down games and really protect Gospel in those moments. And if you're going to protect Gospel, Gospel's going to make the saves, and that's a confidence booster for Leeds going into this weekend that they've got coming up.
Yeah, massive. This is a tiring weekend as well. But yeah, the
But
final game was the one we were at. Bees against Bristol. Not really. It's a nothing game, really. I mean, it's just pride on the line and players just trying to play for contracts. And yeah, 5-3 to Bees in the end. I'd actually probably say Bristol looked the better team, had the better chances. Um, if we're looking at the stats, it says Bees had 43 shots on goal, Dan. Maybe they did, but that just shows even more credit to Harry Thomas, who played 16 years old. 35 shots for Bristol, but a couple of points from this one. Firstly, well done, Ollie Hemmings-Mayer. He got the empty net goal. That was his first for the Bees in the National League. Mogg was really good as well. But I want to shout out. Who was I going to shout out? Oh, I think Mogg was the one I was going to shout out. He got man of the match. He was really good, Dan, wasn't he? Sorry, I blanked out there.
Yeah, Mog's one of those guys that he's had a really good year. He always every time I've watched him this year, he's never like he's had like an off game. He never seems to have made a mistake. He's come on leaps and bounds in his game, and he's really solidified himself as being that top D
Short-handed as
man.
well
Yeah, that's two. There was two short-handed
in
goals
the
for Bees
game.
in that game. Yeah, not great for Bristol. You don't want to be giving up for those short-handed goals. You need to be scoring on those power plays. Obviously, special teams can be the difference sometimes. But yeah, that's a really really good game from Mog, and he's yeah he's had a great year. I mean, it's always tough playing in the Bees team. You always seem like you're obviously on the other end of every game. But the fact that you've got a guy like Mog who's still putting up performances, still trying to play his best, it's always going to be a positive thing. And yeah, he's a great player, and Bees are very very lucky to have him.
Yeah, he's played all 50 games as well. Someone I do want to talk about, I haven't watched him. Elliot Lewis, man, he's just rapid, strong. It's just that final product with him. And on Saturday, it sounds like a couple of them went in. But yeah, he was one which stood out on the eye. Bailey Harewood obviously got a couple of assists. He did actually lose the puck for the short-handed goal,
Yeah.
which Bees took the lead, which was a bit unlucky. Harry Thomas actually made a wonder save, but then Gabai just stuffed home the rebound, and that was the choker, I think. And yeah, the Bees edge out the win in the end. But it was nice to watch a game, just a casual little game, really. No fights though. Bit annoyed about that one. There was a bit of beef at the end. Martin up to some tricks, but no fights in the end in that one. But yeah, that was the weekend wrapped up then, and this is probably the biggest weekend of the season then. And we'll get straight into it because the MK Lightning host the Leeds Knights for the title. Pretty well, not mathematically, but they're both on 77 points. Leeds have a game in hand, which they play this weekend. They've got a 3-game weekend. They play Romford on Friday away, which that's just shown on the Sunday how tough it can be. MK just scraped it. They then got Solway at home on the Sunday. If Solway is still possibly can get that playoff spot, they're going to be gunning for it as well. And then on in between, they've got that game on Saturday, Dan. You're going to be there. Back to back MK games at home. Um, First of all, how do you see this one going then? Obviously, Leeds won their last time. They had a good second period, and that's all they needed to do really to get the lead. And then they held on to the lead, and they didn't really look like losing it from then. I think this one will be a bit different. But how do you see this one going? Because I honestly, I cannot call it. I don't know what teams are going to turn up in this.
Yeah, it's a really really hard game to call. Just going from the Peterborough game, I know it's going to be totally different. But I think the first period is going to be summing up the game. I think whatever team comes out the best in that first period, um, I think is going to have a really good chance. Obviously, we saw Peterborough scoring that really early goal. It obviously helped them through the game because if you can get that first goal in MK, the team's always going to be nervous. Whatever team it is, Leeds will be nervous going into MK. But if you can really settle the team down, settle the nerves, start playing your own game, and sort of make MK chase the game, that's when you can start getting those opportunities. And yeah, I think Leeds are gonna have to be careful because they don't want to sort of go into the game. I don't know. It depends on how the Friday game goes. If they get that
Yeah,
win, they
that's
don't want to go
massive as
in. They
well.
don't want to go into that game too confident.
Yeah.
You don't want it because at the same time, MKS they're still only going to be 2 points ahead. Obviously, going into that game, so it's not like it's out of reach for anyone. But yeah, it's all going to depend on that game before. But I think yeah, that first period is really going to sort of set the tone.
Actually, saying that, if Leeds lose on Friday, for example, it's 77 points after 50 games. It does literally just come down to that game because if MK win on the Saturday, they've then got head to head over Leeds, which I believe, don't take my word on it, is the next decider on the league, Dan, if they're
Yeah,
level on points.
yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. And then it
So
goes to goal difference, is it?
I don't know, but really, Leeds could lose on Friday and still come out of the weekend 2 points ahead of Milton Keynes if they beat them as well. Um, the Sunday, though, as well, I'll go back to the game in a sec. Milton Keynes have Telford away, which is not going to be easy either. So we're not by any means saying whoever wins this game Saturday has won the league because there's still 3 games to play. There's 2 next weekend as well. But this it could come down to it. The way the teams are playing, the way the results have gone in the past month, this one could be the decider. So who is the? I know I've just put you on the spot here. Who I could say mine first, but who is the guy you're looking at in this game, Leeds versus Milton Keynes, who you think is going to have to come up tops for that team to win it? Do you want me
I
to say
mean,
mine first?
I'm gonna go. It's gonna be boring, but it's got to be Brown. It has to be Brown.
Okay, yeah.
Like he's the guy. Like he's the guy that's been coming up in these big games. He's the guy that's rolling right now. Um, I know you've got Barron as well, but I think Brown is that guy that everyone's going to be looking out for that big goal. Big game player. He's done it before for Leeds, and yeah, I don't see why he can't do it again in MKLA.
Well, the one from Leeds for me is Gospel. I think MK will probably get more shots, more opportunities. A bit like that Peterborough game. They outshot Peterborough, but Levine was level to them all and the defence did enough. So I'm going to say Gospel because that's the guy who's been carrying them through a lot of games. But for Milton Keynes, if they don't have Forsberg, it's gone back to their old trio of Spadafort, Wallace, and Lawrence. And Spadafort, it's a massive game for him if he's the only big import D man. Wallace as well, I was going to throw out there. I think he's massive in this game. We
Mhm.
see the difference with him. This is the time to show what he's about and not to do anything stupid. And same with Spadafore. But yeah, it's gonna be nuts, Dan. I'm jealous I can't be there. Obviously, I've got to be at the Swindon game, and we've got our big fans fest. I'll have 2 eyes on the, or 1 eye, sorry, on the game. I'm sure you'll be giving me and Charlie some updates. But
If I can get Wi-Fi in there.
oh, bloody hell! How do you see what if I have to hassle you for a prediction? Who's winning this game? Also, Milton Keynes might have to do this in regulation as well. They can't let Leeds have a point if they're going to win the rest of the games of the season. So MK have kind of got to do this in regulation as well, Dan.
I'm gonna go for a Leeds win.
In
That's what I'm gonna
regulation
go
or OT.
in regulation.
Okay.
I reckon there'll be one goal in it, but it'll be in regulation. I've just got a feeling. I think Leeds are gonna come into this game. They've been in these big moments more than MK. Um, Obviously, Leeds have got it done. Leeds do get it done. We've said it. Well, we said it the past 3 seasons how relentless Leeds are. They always find a way of getting it done in these games. Um, and this game is huge. Um, every player's going to be up for it, but I just have that feeling that Leeds are just going to edge it on their mentality. I think MK have a risk of losing their head a little bit if the game sort of switches. Whereas I think Leeds, obviously, I saw them play against MK last time. Obviously, I know it's a totally different game, but Leeds just looked that more comfortable in the park. They looked like they took their chances better. They didn't seem to rush into things. I saw last
They've been in
weekend,
those positions before,
yeah,
haven't they?
I saw last weekend MK when things aren't going their way, like opportunity wise, they rush things and they start panicking. They don't go back to their basics. And I just feel like Leeds, if they can really take a hold in this game, I'm confident that Leeds can get over the line and get that big win.
Yeah, I Charlie said something interesting to me actually. He said he doesn't see Leeds losing in regulation. That doesn't mean that MK could still win that in overtime, but he just cannot see Leeds losing in regulation. So that's interesting. I'm gonna say it is going to overtime. I don't know who will win it in overtime. It will be a coin flip. The way overtimes have gone this season, probably MK, but overtime wouldn't be the end of the world for Leeds. If they can just get it to overtime, it means they still stay a point in front no matter what happens. So yeah, and unless they lose on Friday, that is as well. I'm saying it as if everyone wins the rest of the games of the season. But if we're going fast forward 2 weeks ahead, Dan, their final game of the season is Hull away, and Hull are not gonna let them off lightly, are they? They're not gonna go, yeah, there you go, have the win. They ain't gonna want Leeds to win in their own barn if it comes down to that game, are they? I
No,
know we're
that's it.
speaking a bit in head, and we'll probably talk about that a bit next week, but they won't want to let that happen.
Nah, yeah, 100% they won't. But going back to the MK Leeds game again, another big thing I think is going to be deeper in the lineup. I think those third lines, obviously, the third line of Braden, Endicott, and Gallagher's obviously had a really good year. But then you've also got the third line, with obviously Wallace running it for MK. It's going to be the way they can match their lines. I think it's going to be important as well because if you can get those line changes, obviously MK get there's a little moth going
Moth
around.
flying about, yeah.
But if MK can get those line matches, because obviously they're the home team, they get the last change. That could push them across the line. Maybe get those offensive zone face-offs in there. There's little moments of the game can change the whole thing. So yeah, it's going to be a really interesting game.
Yeah, I can't wait for it. It's gonna be a banger. You're gonna be there.
I'm
I'm,
going to be buzzing. Flying out to New
where are you
York
sat? Are
and
you in the Leeds end?
yeah, in the Leeds end, yeah.
You're always in the away ends. No, the only home end we've been in is the
Yeah, for the Romford
MK
game.
versus Romford game, that
Yeah.
semi-final, and we were kind of on our own a bit. Maybe a couple Romford fans come up with us. But yeah, set to be a cracker weekend. As I said, go follow our socials at Macca's Talk Hockey. I believe if Leeds win all three games, they might win the league. I'm not sure. I have to double check that mathematically. But yeah, it's going to be an absolute cracker of a weekend. And we will try and get an episode out next week. I'll try and bring the laptop along with us to America. So yeah, please do like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.